So let's talk about our great women, all right? Because women have gone through a lot. They've gone through a lot. Women are poorer than they were 4 years ago, are less healthy than they were 4 years ago, are less safe on the streets than they were 4 years ago, are paying much higher prices for groceries and everything else than they were 4 years ago, are more stressed and depressed and unhappy than they were 4 years ago, and are less optimistic and confident in the future than they were just 4 years ago. I will fix all of that, women. I will fix all of that, and I will fix it fast. And at long last, this national nightmare that we're going through will be over. Women will be happy, healthy, confident, and free. You will no longer be thinking about abortion because it is now where it always had to be, with the states and with the vote of the people. The people are now voting, and many of those votes are far more liberal than we thought. But every legal scholar, every Republican and Democrat for years didn't want it in federal. They wanted it in the states, and a vote of the people. And that's what's happening right now. And with the powerful exceptions like those that Ronald Reagan insisted on. Ronald Reagan insisted on the exceptions for rape, incest, and life of the mother.
And when I say a parallel universe, I really am serious in terms of the world we all live in, which Kamala Harris lives in terms of the questions she's asked, how she's interrogated, every single thing she does and says is analysed. Yet with the former losing President of the United States of America, it's like a separate world. Like, nobody says anything. The fact that he goes to North Carolina, avoids doing any interviews, avoids talking about Mark Robinson. Mark Robinson doesn't even turn up on stage. Yet, hardly anybody says anything about it at all. These practices are crazy. The person who goes on stage, today he was so anti-Semitic it is untrue. How dare he say this will be the end of Israel if he doesn't get in? It is just not true. If there are people who believe that, I would love them to go right now to the Israeli embassy in America, right, and say to them, ask them their opinion if they think that's true. It's gobbledygook. Yet he comes out with it and nobody says a blind thing.
Is proven in who has accepted CNN's invitation to do a second debate. So far, that is only Vice President Kamala Harris. Donald Trump continues to, it seems like, rule out the idea that he would do another debate, saying he's already debated President Biden and now Kamala Harris. Something like 67 million people tuned into the first debate. So that matters. But then when you look at the polls and whether or not each candidate got a bump afterwards, they didn't really change much because of that single debate. So I think when you're thinking about the campaign getting an advantage in polls, it's not really going to matter. But of course, she could always expand on really just showing what a tough leader she would be against Trump. But people already saw that in the first debate.
So let's talk about Mark Robinson, who refuses to drop out of North Carolina's gubernatorial race amid the reports he made lewd comments on a porn site over 10 years ago and called himself a black Nazi who wanted slavery reinstated. Look, Robinson denies the reports. Usually down ballot races don't affect the presidential vote. Does it feel different in a critical state, Alexi?
Yeah, I mean, it's not only making North Carolina the single most important swing state in the presidential election, but to your point, we could see a situation in which those down ballot races for Senate, for governor, could have negative impacts on Trump. Those down ballot abortion initiatives in other states, those will also, they have the potential to have a negative impact on Trump because they are a reminder to voters of how all of these things got started with Trump setting off in motion the overturning of Roe v. Wade. So, you know, I certainly think that that won't help him either. But Mark Robinson is a liability for Trump in so many ways, even though he denies these past comments. And the Trump campaign knows it because they are not allowing him to join the rally today and don't want him near Trump himself.
Yeah, no, point well taken. Dasha, presidential historian Larry Sabato, who's famous for his election predictions, said the North Carolina governor's race has now changed from leaning Democrat to likely Democrat. Given these prospects, will Robinson feel any pressure from the Trump camp to drop out?
Well, look, we already know that folks in the Trump campaign and the former president's Republican allies have been urging Trump to rescind his endorsement of Robinson. I think that alone says a lot. I mean, he has not been a popular candidate to begin with. Some of the voters we talked to here were already saying that prior to these reports coming out, they were already not planning to vote for him. And the former president has been polling ahead of Robinson and ahead of some of the other down ballot candidates. But yeah, the question is just how much of an impact might this have? Look, folks like this at a Trump rally, it's not going to sway them. But those lean Democrat or lean Republican but might be swayable voters, they could have a potential impact. And that's certainly why you've got this scramble within the campaign and within the world of Republican operatives trying to figure out how to walk this line. It's sounding like so far from the conversations we've been having with sources that the former president is leaning towards doing sort of a disavowal of the comments that CNN reported on, but not necessarily going so far as rescinding his endorsement. But so far, what I'm hearing is all of these conversations are ongoing right now, Alex. So we'll see where this heads in the coming days and weeks.
Yeah, we'll keep an eye on that with your help. So on Friday, the vice president delivered that powerful speech in battleground Georgia, addressing abortion and the profound effects on women and their lives after Roe v. Wade was overturned. Here's a bit of what she said.
This is a healthcare crisis, and Donald Trump is the architect of this crisis. He is proud that women are dying, proud that doctors and nurses could be thrown in prison for administering care, proud that young women today have fewer rights than their mothers and grandmothers. How dare he?
So, Alexei, the speech was a direct response to the deaths of 2 Georgia women tied to the lack of abortion care. What impact do you think this is going to have on this highly contested state?
When you add human stories and human faces to what could otherwise be abstract policies or issues that just get swept up in the partisan noise, that really sticks with people longer than a regular political ad or rally or speech might. I mean, it's horrific when we're seeing the exact thing that folks warned about before Roe was overturned, which was that women would die because they would be denied care that they needed in order to live, that is now a reality. And Donald Trump is not even in the White House. Imagine if he is reelected. And that is the argument that Democrats are making every time they tell the story of what happened, not just to these women in Georgia, but all around the country.
So, Dasha, Springfield, Ohio, still grappling with Donald Trump and J.D. Vance's repeated lies about Haitian migrants eating pets. Now that it's been debunked and denied by a list of Ohio officials, including its Republican governor, is the Trump campaign trying at all to pivot away from this, or does Trump still plan to visit Springfield in the coming weeks?
It's funny you asked that. I've been listening out for exactly that, and he hasn't mentioned it at this rally so far. But they've really doubled down, even amid all of the criticism, even amid all of the response from local officials in Springfield, Ohio, talking about how much damage this is doing to the community there. This is something that is a strategy for former President Trump. He doesn't apologize. He doesn't back away. He doubles down on anything that's deemed scandalous. But this is one that's really having a tangible impact and is distracting from an issue that should be a winning issue for him. You saw Ohio Republican Governor Mike DeWine this week write an op-ed saying as much, saying to by the way, Ohio Senator J.D. Vance and former President Trump, saying, look, I'm a fan of them. I like them. I want them to win, but this is not the way to go and to talk about immigration, which is an issue where you could have real success here. So that's where it's at. We'll take a listen and see if he mentions it again. But he's getting a lot of advice from people within his own party that this is not how you frame the issue of immigration successfully, Alex.
Okay. Can I just say, Dasha, I think Alexei must join me in applauding your ability to keep your thought process, keep going when you have Donald Trump in his rhetoric.
Before we go any further this Saturday, can we just deal with cheating in debate. Trump, while the Trumpy Trumps have been saying that whenever Trump does a debate, his opposition is, well, given an advantage. I wonder how you would explain this then. Republican Derek Anderson in VA, see what happens.
Beholden to swear an oath of fealty to the president. And it could be a Republican, it could be a Democrat, and frankly, it's unacceptable. It weakens us in national security because what it does is you're replacing experts with political hacks. I have some knowledge of that because I worked in the previous administration in the National Security Council. I've seen what that does to national security. And these are experts that have...
Should we just rerun that in slow motion? Looks like he was slipped a note during the debate from his handler. Cheating. Michael Cohen, I'm sure you know the history of Michael Cohen and the former guy. He did have some interesting words to say this Saturday on the weekend show on MSNBC. That's with regard the cronies, the loonies that are in Trump's inner circle. You may think these are the sort of people that hang out on Fox News. Well, they probably are, but they've lost the plot. Mark Robinson, Lara Loomer, where hate, racism and anti-Semitism, they're just being accepted. Nobody is calling it out. Why?
You have this idea that he embodies this attack on the country in such a profound way, and yet people seem to be okay with that.
Yeah, I mean, look, one of the things that we've also seen, not only Donald Trump telling you he wants to rewrite the Constitution as if he could, with
all caps,
right, all
Sharpie.
Caps. No, not Sharpie, crayon. All right, on stolen documents that he took from the White House, right? Maybe some top secret on the back of it. He'll scratch it out. But he also has talked about destroying our tripartite system of government, getting rid of the legislative branch and the judiciary, conferring all power onto himself, making him the king. And what else has he done? He has said he wants everyone that's going to work in the administration, in his government, to sign a loyalty pledge. That's something that you don't see from a president. That's something that you see from a king, a monarch, a supreme leader, or a Führer, not from a president of the United States. Everything here is wrong. It's all wrong for America, it's wrong for the future of America, and it's wrong for democracy.
You know, Mike, I think that's a really important point, and it turns our attention to Donald Trump. But I'm really interested in the fact that he's appealing to such a large swath of Americans. Yep. And that fact requires us to think about our history. And our history leads us to, will immediately lead us to the fact that there's always been this undemocratic undertow to American life. Folks who are not committed to the democratic process, folk who are not committed to the idea of checks and balances, folk who think that this is an ethno-nationalist state, folk who believe that only certain folks should have rights and other folks. So there's always been this battle. Why else is Lincoln saying we must appeal to our better angels? Because there's the fact that there's an ugly underbelly to the country. And what's interesting about Donald Trump is he's turned the well over. And we can see the barnacles and all of the ugliness underneath. And so part of our challenge is not just simply to exceptionalize Donald Trump. Our challenge is to understand his attraction. And once we wrap our minds around that, then maybe we can open up space for the
And look at the attraction that Ellie's talking about. Think about it. He's gotten MAGA Mike Johnson to get on the record to talk about how he wants to see America as a white Christian nationalist country again. That's their goal. On top of that, he even has Mark Robinson, a black man from North Carolina, buying into the nonsense.
Don't get ahead of us.
Very much interested in how the vice president would begin to have this conversation around the economy, since it has been such a weak point for Democrats, despite all of the good news that has come out over the past year. And now with interest rates cuts by the Fed this week, 50 basis points, and Republicans whining about that, saying like that's a bad thing. I want you to listen to how in this very, very loose moment with Oprah Oprah Winfrey, the vice president talks about her economic agenda relative to Donald Trump's.
Part of my plan is to give startup small businesses a $50,000 tax deduction to start up their small business. Right now it's $5,000. Nobody can start a small business with $5,000. So that's part of my plan.
That's a teeny tiny business.
That's a business in
teeny tiny business.
It's a concept of a business, right?
Yes.
They ain't ready for this. This is a concept of a business. I mean, I love it. And the thing about it is people got it. I think people get it. They understand what that means for a small business owner to now be able to have this infusion of support.
Absolutely. You know, tens of millions of Americans have small businesses, and many more people think about becoming their own boss and launching a small business or a side hustle that's a small business. But when you launch a small business, then you get hit by a tax bill because there's not withholding. And that can be hugely problematic for people. So having the vice president in the corner of everyone who has a dream, who wants to build wealth for themselves and their families by launching something that is their idea, not just getting a job, that really speaks to a president who connects not just with people, as she says, trying to get by, but people trying to get ahead, people have aspirations. And it speaks to this big idea about the future, turning the page, thinking about where we want to go, not just going back to someplace where we've been. I think it ties in so deeply to the core idea of this campaign. It's why she has credibility on the economy in a way that has to be making Donald Trump panic a little bit.
I did say some time ago, I actually think it would be a great idea for Kamala Harris to go on Fox News in the same way that Pete Buttigieg goes on Fox News and deal with the liars, the bullshitters, the conspiracy theories, take them all down at once, because how they spin and play it, they just need somebody to point out that they're, well, a bit pathetic. Hypocrisy, contradictions. Take, for example, I think whenever I've heard anything to do with guns, the First Amendment, Fox News being firmly in that corner, until Kamala Harris says how she would deal with any intruders, and suddenly, well, look at this reaction. It's come back, SNL.
Answer this. She's married, right?
She is married.
All right, so Doug is in the bed with her, right?
Correct.
So someone breaks into the Harris house, and Harris shoots the intruder?
She just said they would get shot.
Okay, because she made it seem like she was going to cap the guy. Because if someone breaks into the house and the man stays in bed and hides under the covers and the wife goes out and takes care of it, that's... Let Doug explain it.
What a chauvinist thing to say.
Maybe she's the gun owner and he isn't, and he's following the law.
Yeah.
Following the law?
Yes, by not using someone else's gun.
You can't use your wife's gun?
No.
And he doesn't have his own gun? I think we have a lot of questions about this.
Let the record reflect this is the one time Judge Bureau has defended Kamala Harris. I know you.
No, I was defending her.
The one thing I would say to you, if you come across anybody knocking on your door, regardless of what political party they are, but specifically if they are a Republican, get them on policy. Because they're heavy on rhetoric, heavy on red meat, but very light on policy. For example, what's going on in Springfield, Ohio? Yeah? There's very little discussion in terms of the history of Springfield, the details of why there has been immigration, the positivity of what's going on in Springfield. It's all based on one J.D. Vance lie, one smear, which is blown out of proportion. You can always find somebody who's wearing red shoes, by the way. So when you see on Fox an opinion from somebody randomly in the street, who's often actually a member of the Republican Party, always take that with a pinch of salt. So if somebody comes knocking, open the door and say, hello, nice to see you. I'll probably see you again in 4 years' time when the next election is on. But anyway, what are your policies on, I don't know, childcare? What is your thoughts on the fact that we still don't have Trump's healthcare plan? Ask them straight. You'll probably get a good answer, which will give you some material to have a laugh at them, but hey.
Taylor Swift isn't the first successful woman Donald Trump has attacked. She's just the most recent.
I'd look her right in that fat, ugly face of hers. I'd say, Rosie, you're fired.
Trump has a problem with women. Disrespectful.
Must be a pretty picture you put up there.
Insulting.
Ivana does exactly as I tell her to do.
Even violence.
Ivana Trump once used the term rape to describe a sexual encounter with Trump.
It's ugly.
I'm not thinking
That's okay. I know you're not thinking. You never do.
I'm sorry?
It's cruel.
Do you believe in punishment for abortion? Yes or no, as a principle?
There has to be some form of punishment.
For the woman?
Yeah.
And one thing he's proven is that he'll never change.
I could do this all day long.
You going up the escalator? I'm going to be dating her in 10 years.
Would you want your son to treat women like Trump does?
Hey, when you're a star, you can do anything. Grab him by the...
Is this how you would want a man to treat your daughter?
Blood coming out of her, wherever.
You know the answer. You know the truth. He says he hates Taylor.
I was not a Taylor Swift fan.
But the truth is, he hates all of us.
This is kind of interesting. Before we go any further, Nate Silver is one of the Republicans' favourite pollsters. Nate Silver's polls are the ones that Trump, everybody on Fox, will go to first when they're trying to find something favourable to talk about in the current election polling. Who's going to win? So we'll do the same. We'll look at Nate Poll's latest poll. You can see for yourself how Kamala Harris is doing. She's the blue line. And how the former guy is doing, he's the red line. The latest poll as well from CNN isn't particularly good. And this reflects the latest, what word are we using to describe the guy who's the pin-up for MAGA? Mark Robinson.